I wanted to get down to some real nitty-gritty math here. Specifically, what is it that we're selling? And what is it that we're trying to make an ROI on? And the answer is storage. We are in the storage business. And every business has input costs, and they have a usual market rate for a clearing price of the commodity in which they're selling. Storage is of no difference. It's a near 50-year-old business, especially on the spinning disk side. So I wanted to talk briefly just to educate some people on the call if they're not aware, or if you have some questions, we can talk about those at the end. How do we start with our individual unit? And then how do we mark it up? And what does the market look like on that markup? So your standard disk drive right now is probably around 18 terabytes, maybe a little bit more if you're really advanced, but the pricing on those is not necessarily favorable. So a lot of people are probably installing 18 terabyte drives. Now, these prices are based off numerous market conditions. If you're buying at scale, you can usually expect a 20% discount, which most people are getting. But for the purpose of this exercise, you'll see on the back of the envelope math calculation what actually occurs and where the market converges on your largest input costs that you eventually mark up into a product and package with software and services. So you got your largest CapEx cost for our providers, and even for a lot of cloud providers, building out infrastructure tends to be storage. Now, the life cycle on storage is usually pretty good. It's about 5 years, 3 years at least on the tax amortization in the United States. I'm unsure how they do it in some other countries. Occasionally, you might be able to get longer on drives, but in general, they're warranted for 5 years and they're likely designed to fail within that. So I want to go through some brief math on what is our base cost to produce. So what we do is we take the cost of this drive, we divide it out by number of terabytes, and then we divide it out by the number of months that it would be in service. That gives us a base cost of about 28 cents a terabyte per month. But that's not our actual cost, because for the purpose of ensuring data integrity just at your data center, you will be putting some form of redundancy in place, whether that's a RAID configuration or some type of erasure coding and or some type of more advanced file system. So we'll usually call that a 30% overhead. That's somewhat of an industry standard number you can use. It could go higher if you are using some type of mirroring option. In general, we don't see that because of about 30 years of development has proven that to get to 11 nines, a 30% overhead redundancy is sufficient. So we come close to about 40 cents. And you see this in the sales process. If you were to go to Lenovo, or I believe they resell a number of different, almost like NAS footprint devices you can buy in a data center. It's a managed product. Therefore, you're basically CapEx as a service. Some CTOs and some CFOs really like this. You would see that if you were buying it without actually putting any money down and paying monthly for racks of storage, that your standard salesperson would probably tell you it's in between 40 and 50 cents per terabyte per month on a 5-year life cycle. So that tells us what our base product is and how we're going to mark it up and get to a hopefully high margin product, which I'm going to show you here briefly as well, and then try and make money. So let's move on. Oh, I did want to highlight that when you're in the SSD space, which most of the cloud providers on their warm tier are selling now, unless you opt for the lower tier, and in that case, they're trying to deprecate those drives anyway, your SSD costs are usually about 6 to 7x that of your spinning cycle disks. All right, so why be in the storage business? Well, in general, it is the highest margin product in the current cloud compute landscape. You can see the second tier being CPUs. CPUs tend to have a shorter life cycle. They tend to get refreshed on a 3-year life cycle. If you look at GPUs, because Jensen Huang has his 1-year product life cycle dream in motion, and Wall Street loves a good H300, H400 number set. GPUs actually tend to be about half the margin. And they also tend to be sold off halfway through their life cycle to second-tier providers from the major hyperscalers. Whereas storage tends to stay in place. It's lower cost to operate. The storage industry is a near, like I said, we'll call it 30-year-old industry on the spinning disk life cycle, meaning there have been major advancements in those 30 years to lower the cost, lower the power consumption, and increase density. It's one of the most mature pieces of infrastructure you'll ever see in a data center. Now, on the second line there, you'll see where the industry actually puts its padding on the storage, which is the egress fees. And that model comes from an old telecom model, which is dating back 100 years. It's a tried and true business model. It works very well. I don't see it going away because it's easy to meter and they're somewhat addicted to it. Now, Filecoin has converged and tried to solve some of that problem with some of our providers offering free egress, which we'll talk about here. But I do want to highlight, and we call it Sutton's Law, if anybody's familiar with this. Why would you get into this business? Willie Sutton was a bank robber in the 1930s. When he was asked, why do you rob banks? He replied, because that's where the money is. And so you see, we have a $200 million or $200 billion TAM globally because there's a lot of money in the storage business. And it's why Filecoin exists at scale, because all of the ecosystem participants have organically seen the margins, even just some of the infrastructure that's been laid down, they were able to pay off in a much shorter timeline than if they had gotten into the CPU providing business, the GPU providing business. I don't want to get too far into it. SaaS products tend to have a very high margin as well, but they are dependent on storage. So, nevertheless, what I wanted to talk about here is that our network size, given the current snapshot, what kind of revenue can we generate by charging $1 at the lowest end or 20 at the highest? And you see here where some of our competitors are. And for the purpose of highlighting their spot average price of per terabyte per month, I've put that below. You can see Wasabi and Backblaze are at 6, 7, and Box tends to have an unlimited cost structure, meaning you really have to talk to their salespeople. But it does highlight where we can be at by blended rates of monetizing the entire network if our only product to sell is marking up storage and selling it at $5 a month. This gives you somewhat of a raw cost times our fiat revenue prediction, how much revenue we could generate on an ARR. Now, it's very hard to find out the size and scale of Backblaze or Wasabi. But one thing I want to highlight here, and we could go into this in a later date, but Backblaze is probably on a blended rate of all of their customers, charging somewhere around $3 per terabyte per month. I say that because they used to publish this information, but they no longer do. Nevertheless, both Wasabi and Backblaze are growing at about 60% CAGR. So it's a good market to be in. We have a lot of products that compete with them, both on price and feature sets. I wanted to talk about where we've been winning lately with Onramps and where we can drive more revenue per TIB so we can continue to be in that high margin business is some of the big wins are coming from Akave. Kudos on their S3. It's good to see. It's been tested by me. I did not put my access key and secret key in there, so you cannot use that. But if you want to test it, you can reach out to them. Performance is outstanding. because it is in the central part of the United States. You can get very good performance from either coast or either even when you're in the center of the US. I was getting about, at least from my node in Amazon on the East Coast, about 10 megabytes a second. So great work on that speed of infrastructure. That's very important. Another thing that I find very, very useful and every customer wants is they want a fast URL that they can embed in their app and prove that the storage and retrieval is working. I find that Sriracha does that incredibly well. It's very easy to put an object up there, get the URL, and store that in whatever app index a developer might want to use. So keep up the good work on that. I think the speed at which you can do that in Sriracha is the best in the network. And I have to say, Lighthouse, absolutely outstanding on all your login options. Easiest on-ramp in the ecosystem to log in. I want SAML on my app. I don't want to use any other type of login if possible. Most of the people that come through the I want to use Filecoin funnel have no interest in maintaining alternate login types. They're already bogged down. Make it a SAML login and you win. Want to go also into another area where there's an ecosystem company that's done an incredible job. And when we're able to get a CDN customer in the mix, they are able to see relatively quickly where their data may reside and why that's important to them, because we have the ability to visualize POREP and PDP. We're just not able to do it very well yet. I know that people are working on this. We've talked about it. We need to get probably even closer to just mock-ups on this. But Titan does an amazing job showing that when you put an object, a file, or any video, whatever you want to call it, ends up on a Mapbox-like interface. It shows where the nodes are geo-distributed. It shows all of the node IDs. I am not going to question the accuracy. I'm just going to say that this, from a customer visual, works very, very well. We lose customers when we have to tell, and we lack the ability to show. So kudos to them. Everybody should just copy that if you could, or mock it up. Otherwise, Jen and I actually sometimes do this just with a Filecoin map as to where the providers are, especially if you're on a call. They don't want to see too many CLI type stuff. They just want to see a visual. Keep in mind, and I'll talk about this briefly, that you're dealing with a customer that storage is not their core business. A lot of us get lost into talking about storage. And if they're a buyer, storage is just one of many line items that they likely have to consider. Whether they're a CIO, a CTO, a VP of engineering, or the engineer in the DevOps realm that says, I just want my storage to work. I need it at this price because I'm being driven to lower the cost. It is not their full-time job. Therefore, customer service is crucial because they're not going to get that even when they go to some of our competitors. They're definitely not going to get it from a major hyperscaler. Therefore, we need to make it easy for them. They love chats. If you can get them in a group chat, that works really well. Jen and I have been very successful with that in converting them from POCs to paying customers. But again, I have to highlight that when you're trying to sell storage, you have to assume the person on the other end has many other things to do. So make it very easy for them to get the POC up and running. I also would like to propose that we challenge GCP salespeople on the Web3 front to karate combat. I think it's open in our industry. I'll be the first to take on a GCP salesperson in a karate combat anywhere in the world. If anyone wants to back me up, happy to do that. I think that would be a big win for us. A trophy. We don't have to shed any blood, but a trophy would be great.